India and Pakistan have both been born out of the same land and share many similarities in terms of culture, cuisine, and sports. Why then has there been so much conflict? As many of you may already know, the India-Pakistan Partition was a major issue. Welcome to another episode of FTD Facts. I'm Leroy Kenton, and now I covered the partition issue in a lot of detail in part 1, which you should really check out first if you're not too familiar with the issue before you continue this episode, just so that you have a little bit more context before continuing, because this is part 2. Throughout this video, I'm going to be looking at several points in history where India and Pakistan had notable conflicts and the causes behind those conflicts. This episode of FTD Facts is brought to you by Grammarly.com. Grammarly is one of the leading softwares for improving your written English. It has a database of hundreds of spelling and grammar errors that you make every single day in English without even knowing. So if you want to improve your written English, you can install Grammarly for free. The link to that is down below. And if you choose, you can then purchase the upgrade for even more features. Now, the wars that came after the independence tainted the relationships between the two countries, as well as it triggered a lot of hatred from both sides. 70 years and 4 wars after, it's quite clear that India and Pakistan don't have the best of friendships. Politically speaking, for decades, Indians have accused Pakistan of state-sponsored terrorism, and Pakistan has accused India of supporting ethnic separatism. Now, the first point of conflict that I want to examine is Kashmir. Now, again, I covered the Kashmir dispute a lot in part 1, so if you want a little bit more detail as well, gotta watch part 1. But for the sake of this episode, I gotta rehash some of the facts about the Kashmir dispute. The major dispute between Kashmir is who does it belong to, India or Pakistan? Kashmir used to be an independent state whose ruler had to decide whether he would join India or Pakistan. When rebellion broke out, the ruler took help from the Indian government. India chose to help, but only on one condition: Kashmir must become a part of India. This resulted in 3 major wars between India and Pakistan, one in 1948 and again in 1965 and in 1999. Now let's take a look at some of these wars in a little bit more detail. The Indo-Pakistani War, also known as the First Kashmir War, this was a war that was started when the ruler of Kashmir, Raja Hari Singh, decided to join India. Jammu and Kashmir were the largest of the princely states with a majority Muslim population ruled by an Indian king. The tribal forces, with support from the army of Pakistan, attacked and occupied parts of the state. Hari Singh saw no other option other than to take support from India. The UN was then forced to step in, and a ceasefire was achieved temporarily. After considerable efforts, the UN Commission was forced to declare a failure of Resolution 47 in December of 1949. Indian losses were 1,500 people killed and 3,500 wounded, whereas Pakistan lost over 6,000 people and there was 14,000 people wounded. India gained control of 2/3 of Kashmir, whereas Pakistan gained roughly 1/3 of Kashmir. Most neutral assessments of the war conclude that India may have been the victor of the war, as it was able to hold on to 2/3 of Kashmir, including the Kashmir Valley, Jammu, and Ladakh. This war created the state of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, known as AJK, which is a self-governing administrative division of Pakistan. Now, what you need to note about these wars is that based on who you asked, that will determine which side won the war, because the factors that go into winning a war aren't necessarily very clear, because what it means to actually win a war is often debatable. Does it mean you won the war because you killed more of the enemy's men versus the amount of people that they killed on your side? Or did you conquer more land, so therefore you won the war? But let's move on to the Indo-Pakistani War of 1965. The 1965 war was a direct result of something called Operation Gibraltar. Operation Gibraltar was carried out by Pakistani armed forces in order to occupy Kashmir. If successful, Pakistan hoped to gain control over Kashmir, but the operation didn't achieve the results they hoped for. Now, in case you're wondering why they called it Operation Gibraltar, that was a code name that referred to the Arab invasion of Spain, which was launched from Port Gibraltar. Now, in August of 1965, the Pakistani army entered Jammu and Kashmir from Pakistan disguised as locals, but the strategy didn't work and people soon knew that they were infiltrators. This sparked the Indo-Pakistani War of 1965. India retaliated with a full-scale military attack. The war lasted 17 days. The war ended only after diplomatic interventions by the Soviet Union and the United States. Now, just to give you a little bit of idea of how tense things got, a lot of people tend to focus on the wars of 1947, 1971, and 1999, but the 1965 war is often forgotten about. Now, in 2015, it marked the golden anniversary, or the 50th anniversary of that war, and Pakistan, as well as India, claimed to be the winners of that war. Now let's move on to 1971. This war wasn't related to Kashmir at all, but the ongoing wars between East and West Pakistan was why these two countries fought again in 1971. Bangladesh, formerly known as East Pakistan, wanted to be an independent country. And I mean understandably so, because East and West Pakistan was separated by a large mass of India. India was right in the middle between Pakistan and currently what is known as Bangladesh. So the people of East Pakistan, now Bangladesh, to them it made no sense to be part of Pakistan. India supported the Bangladeshi cause and formally entered into war with Pakistan. The war lasted 13 days and there was the largest number of prisoners of wars taken captive since World War II. The war ended with the independence of East Pakistan and the creation of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. Continuing on through history in the year 1984, and in part 1 I did cover the conflict of the Saichen Glacier in a little bit more detail, so I'm not going to go into too much detail in this part, but just to give you guys a backdrop, India launched an operation known as Meghdoot to gain control over the Saichen Glacier. This was followed by the Pakistani army launching strikes on several occasions in 1985, 1987, and 1995. The Saichen Glacier is the highest battleground on Earth, and both India and Pakistan maintain permanent military presence in the region at a height of over 6,000 meters. That's roughly 20,000 feet. The two countries have been fighting over the glacier since 1984. More than 2,000 people have died on the glacier, mostly due to the extreme weather as well as other risks of fighting so high up. Continuing into the year of 1999, the last battle between India and Pakistan, and an especially important one, was the Kargil War of 1999. The war took place immediately after the Pakistani army infiltrated the Kargil district in Kashmir. The Indian army fought back with all its might to drive out the Pakistani infiltrators, and within 2 months, India was able to regain most of its territory. Pressured by the international communities, Pakistan was forced to withdraw its troops from the area. So although 1999 was the last huge military battle between these two countries, the conflicts between the two countries still continue, and even in the past decades we notice some of this. And especially throughout history, we do see times where there is peace and then all of a sudden overnight things change. The past few years saw a rise in cultural collaboration between India and Pakistan, where Bollywood stars appeared in commercials on Pakistani TV. Musicians from both countries were seen collaborating. Coke Studio and Pakistani TV shows were becoming very popular in India. However, tensions renewed in the summer of 2016. There arose protests in Kashmir against Indian security forces. Add to the fact that there were very violent attacks on an Indian army base in Kashmir that was followed by a surgical strike by India on Pakistan. It was called the deadliest attack on security forces in Kashmir in 2 decades. As a result of the attack, 19 Indian soldiers were killed. India's Home Minister Rajnath Singh tweeted this shortly after: "Pakistan is a terrorist state and it should be identified and isolated as such." Yeah, and the Indian political party Navnirman Sena, also known as the MNS, issued a 48-hour ultimatum to Pakistani artists working in Bollywood to leave India or the MNS would punish them. The popular film director Karan John was on the brink of releasing his film A Dil Hai Mushkil around this time, which went on to become a big success, but the MNS had threatened to not let him release the video. Why? It was because the Pakistani actor Fawad Khan played a small role in the movie. After this, many actors agreed not to work with Pakistanis until tensions between the two countries died down. That concludes this episode of The Truth Behind the India-Pakistan Conflict Part 2. We saw your comments and feedback on Part 1, so we did our best to go into detail in a lot more of the conflicts here. So I hope you guys now gained a deeper insight into what really happened in this conflict. Be sure to support our sponsor Grammarly.com, who help make these videos possible, especially when we talk about conflicts and wars and topics like this. So the link to Grammarly.com is down below, where you can install it for free. And when you help support them, you allow us to continue to make videos like this. We here at FTD Facts are trying to paint a clearer picture so that we can educate you all on what really went wrong. And hopefully, whatever your nationality is, you can discover something about yourself and how you relate to people when you take a look at the history of India and Pakistan. Perhaps violence and hate is not the most constructive way to solve a conflict. And as history shows, it doesn't appear to have ever been. Now, before you guys get out of here, here's some more videos related to India and Pakistan if you want more insight on the countries and the tensions between them, as well as just learn some other amazing aspects about India and Pakistan. It's not all conflict. But if you are interested in learning about the different countries and places of the world, we have some videos on those for you as well. Be sure to stay educated, and I'll see you real soon.